This is day 2 of 365. It's probably going to be a bit of a short update today. But I had a conversation last night on a TikTok live, which I try to do a couple times a week. And sometimes it's literally just me goofing off with other writers, but sometimes we actually get into some interesting conversations. And we started talking a bit about motivation, about what pushes a writer forward to continue creating, even through how difficult that process actually can become. Being a writer is very much this long road of speed bumps that you're going to run into through the actual process of writing the story itself, of editing, of formatting, of proofreading, of all of the different steps that come between the moment you have that first idea and the moment you actually carry it through to fruition and hold that book in your hands. And I was thinking about the podcast Dungeons and Daddies, which surprisingly has some really insightful commentary, particularly on their behind the scenes episodes that they do for Patreon subscribers. And one of the things they talked about the other day is the difference between wanting to be a writer and wanting to write. And I think that that's an important distinction, but I also think that it can kind of oversimplify and also maybe marginalize the value of wanting to be a writer, because I've always been someone who wanted to tell stories. That has very much been a part of how I coped with some of the challenges that I was facing in life. I would make up stories. I do the same thing that I suspect a lot of fan fiction authors did, but I didn't write it down, where I would imagine different scenarios and different properties that I was passionate about. Or I would imagine different stories set in the world with different inputs and stuff like that. And so coming up with stories in my head and telling stories to people has always been part of what I love to do. It's almost less what I want to do and almost more about how I communicate with the world. And so I don't think there will ever be a doubt that I want to write. But I also don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with wanting to be a writer, with wanting to reach a point in your career where you are recognized for the work that you have done, for all of that effort that I talked about, that long, long road with all the speed bumps along it that can screw you up. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting people to look at that effort and that work and that product that you've put so much of your heart and soul into and finding value in it and saying, that person right there, that is a writer. Coupled with that, the fact that, yeah, if it's possible one day, I would love for writing and telling stories to be my full-time job. I would love to reach the point in which I have built enough of an audience that value the work that I do enough that I can support my family that way. And so I think there is something very interesting. I understand the point that they're trying to get at. If your goal is to be a writer, there are so many different opportunities for you to be discouraged or distracted from that particular goal. If your goal is, I just want to write stories, it's a lot more difficult for the world to kind of disrupt that. As long as you have a pen and a piece of paper, you can write stories. But I do worry that a lot of times when that statement is brought out, do you want to be a writer or do you want to write stories? The insinuation is that if the answer is, I want to be a writer, that there is something wrong with that answer. I don't actually think that's the case. Beyond that, today was kind of a bumpy day. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night, but you know what? We're making progress. We're moving forward, and hopefully we will have some really good news about the cover for Extraction coming out. I haven't talked about Extraction here on YouTube at all yet. So Extraction is my second book in the fantasy series that I'm writing, and it is a fantasy thriller that centers around it's a heist story, and it centers around two characters who are trying to steal a sample of bull semen, which is a really great elevator pitch. I do worry sometimes it makes the book sound a lot funnier than it is. It is a true thriller. It is fairly dark at times. It's going to have a fair number of content warnings going into it, but it's a story that I had to work really hard at, and I'm very, very proud of. And I'm very excited to see what cover designer Melody Stout comes back with, because, I have had no idea what the cover of this book should look like, but it's going to be really exciting when I get to start piecing all of that stuff together. So, all right. Well, with that, I hope each and every one of you have a good day, and I'll see you all tomorrow.